brought to you by the Rockbridge Area Community Services Board and the Rockbridge Area Prevention Coalition. I'm your host, Blake Sanchez, and on today's episode, I will be introducing you to the Prevention Services team at the Rockbridge Area Community Services Board and the Rockbridge Area Prevention Coalition. The Rockbridge Area Community Services Board aims to help prevention and treat mental illness, developmental disabilities, and substance abuse, and to enhance the quality of life of individuals who experience these conditions in the cities of Buena Vista and Lexington and the counties of Rockbridge and Bath, Virginia, by providing individualized treatments, establishing and expanding upon programs and support systems, and by promoting integration back into the community. Today, I'm with Brianne Rogers, who is the Prevention Services Program Manager at Rockbridge Area Community Services. Hi, Brianne.
Hey, Blake.
To get us started, Brianne, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your role at Rockbridge Area Community Services?
Sure. Well, I actually moved back to the area around 2010, 2011, and this was a brand new field for me. I worked in exercise science before. That's what I went to school for. So when I moved here, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do in that field. And then I blinked and I was introduced to the coalition world, and it's been nonstop ever since. I love that I've learned so many new things. I feel like I learn something new every single day. But it's definitely an eye-opening field working in alcohol, tobacco, drug prevention for youth, as well as the mental health and suicide prevention. So really, it's the whole umbrella of prevention working here at Rockbridge Area Community Services. So I really love that no 2 days are alike, that I get to do a whole lot of different type of things, but really that I get to be in the community. That's my favorite part, is getting to know members of our community.
Awesome. You mentioned briefly about the different types of umbrella programs that Rockbridge Area Community Services provides. Could you maybe go into a little bit more detail of maybe a few specifics of what those programs are?
Absolutely. I feel like I need to step back like 10 steps though, and mention that when people think of prevention services, a lot of times what comes to mind of what we do is Too Good for Drugs, or the prevention programming that's in the schools, which we have, and it's an incredible resource in our area, or health fairs, that we're at health fairs. But that's something that we've kind of navigated a little bit away from, because what we found is that we really need to look upstream. Have you ever heard of upstream prevention?
I haven't. Would you mind going into it a little bit more?
Sure. I'll see if I can break this down a little bit. I'll tell you the story that comes with it. So, upstream prevention, basically, if you're thinking of upstream prevention, you're thinking of, and well, here's the story that came with it. Someone told me that there are two individuals that were walking down this road, and there was a river beside the road. And then they heard someone screaming out that they were drowning in this river. They needed some help. So they started running into the river to pull this person out of the river. Next thing they knew, they heard another person going down the river screaming. So they ran back into the river, pulled another person out, and person after person was being pulled down this river. And they were trying to figure out what in the world is going on. And so one person got out of the water, walked upstream, while the other one was like, "Where are you going? We have so many people we need to help." And they said, "I'm going upstream to figure out why in the world all these people are falling in the river." So that's the story behind it. But really what we look at is, yes, absolutely. If you're looking at river story, they are swimming programs, life-saving programs that you need. But if you go upstream, is there a bridge that maybe there's a piece of wood or plank that's out of that needs to be fixed? So that's kind of the analogy behind it. So what we look at now are, do youth have easy access to substances, or parent perception of risk or harm, or youth perception of risk or harm? Those are some of those things that we look at when we're looking at that upstream prevention. So what is it that's shaping the mindset, or shifting the culture in our community that's around alcohol, tobacco, or other drugs, or even suicide prevention, mental health awareness? All of those things, we really look at how can we impact the entire environment versus just one individual at a time. So that's kind of what we look at now when we look at prevention services. So not really programs, but we do have some programs. So we have the Too Good for Drugs program in the schools, which is an incredible program, but it is more individual based. So we do a lot more things that are upstream. We do a lot of trainings. So like mental health first aid, youth mental health first aid, understanding adverse childhood experiences, suicide alertness for everyone, the applied suicide intervention skills training, Revive, which is the naloxone training. So a lot of trainings. We do a lot in coalition work, which is my favorite. And I feel like we could do an entire episode on that. But coalition work is a big piece for us. We do the counter tools assessments. And most of the time when we say counter tools, people don't know what that is. So that is basically where we go in tobacco retailers and we do an assessment just to make sure that the products are behind the counter, that they are where they should be, that the advertisements aren't saturating the entire environment. But that's what we look at there. Trying to think of what else I've forgotten. Basically, everything that we do follows the strategic prevention framework model. So if you've not heard of that, it is an incredible model. I would definitely suggest looking into that. That's SAMHSA's model, but we take it one step further and we use CADCA's 7 strategies of change. So that's a mouthful, I know.
Awesome. And let's just say that there are listeners out there who are interested in taking part in some of these trainings. What is the best way to get plugged into these trainings?
This is a great question. So if you are listening and you want to just take it for yourself, you can go to our website, which is www.racsb.org, and click on the trainings tab. And then it lists whenever we have an open training. If we don't have a training that's open right now, you can still click on a button and it sends an email to us so that we know that you're interested, and then you're put on an email list for when the next one's scheduled. If you are an organization and you want to train your staff in one of those, you can just email either me or the prevention email and we'll set up a closed training for you. I call it closed just because I know that we're just going to your organization and you're the one who's signing up all the individuals. But a lot of times that's what people end up deciding to do, is to bring us to them. And honestly, if you think about it, we're going to a place where people already feel comfortable and already feel safe to talk about some topics that maybe they haven't talked about before. So I love doing both. Trainings are one of my favorite things to do. So if someone's interested, they can either email me or they can go to our website and sign up for a training that way.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Brianna. I know you've shared a lot of wonderful information out there for our listeners. To kind of conclude and wrap up, I know in our conversation, you've talked a lot about community and how you value community. Could you talk just maybe a little briefly about, words for our listeners and advice about our community and this community as we move forward through prevention-related issues?
Yeah, well, whenever I think about this community, the term community reciprocity comes to mind. And I know that in itself can be trying to figure out what that means, but it's basically when neighbors are helping out neighbors. And I see that so much here. It's just one of those heartwarming feelings when someone might be struggling with something, others step up. They just do. And I love that about this community. One of the other things that I love here, and this is not the case for other communities, or so I hear, is that community collaboration. We have that here. We've got, especially with our coalition, our community coalitions, when we have community partners who are coming to get together for the same shared mission and goals, it's amazing the work that can get done. So I love that all of our community partners come together for that and collaborate so well. I mean, it's incredible to see them in action.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brianne.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Prevention Podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening to the story and experiences of one of our amazing community partners. We would love to hear your feedback on this series. Should you have any questions, comments, or recommendations about the future of the series, you can reach us online at www.racsb.org/prevention or by email at prevention@racsb.org. As always, it has been a pleasure chatting with you today, and I look forward to serving you in the next episode.